Welcome to Keiko Vision, a podcast to pump you up to change the world. Hosted by me, Jordana. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Keiko Vision with Jordana. On this episode, we're going to talk about worker treatment in the United States. So I put out the most recent Utopia versus Dystopia episode on this topic on Thursday. So the episode starts out with a clip from John Oliver. And I love John Oliver, so you'll notice there's a lot of his clips in the Utopia versus Dystopia series. So it starts out with John Oliver talking about the transition from retail jobs to warehouse jobs and how you're kind of seeing that transition. So the retail jobs are being lost, these warehouse jobs are being created, but the workers are treated a lot differently in warehouse jobs than they were in retail. So there was one specific situation in which a warehouse worker died due to excessive heat, and then the rest of the coworkers were basically told to work around her body. The company disputes this, of course, but social media from the time of the incident supports the workers and their story and their account of the accident. And surprisingly, warehouse occupational injury is higher than logging, construction, and coal mining, which I've got a background in reinsurance and I've got a grandfather who died from black lung. So I know how risky these jobs are. So this episode also talks about Amazon. Obviously, when we're talking about warehouse jobs, Amazon is such a huge player, and how they treat their employees and how their employees are basically human machines that if they can't keep up, they're really of no value. So people talk about missing bathroom breaks, not being able to check their blood sugar levels because they're on such a strict quota and they're being monitored constantly. And again, I have resources up online, including this memo from Amazon that was leaked. It says, "Hello, this evening, an associate discovered human feces in an Amazon bag that was returned to a station by a driver. This is the third occasion in the last 2 months when bags have been returned to station with poop inside. We understand that DAs may have emergencies while on road, and especially during COVID, DAs have struggled to find bathrooms while delivering. Regardless, DAs cannot, must not, return bags to station with poop inside." We've noticed an uptick recently of all kinds of unsanitary garbage being left inside bags. Used masks, gloves, bottles of urine. By scanning the QR code on the bag, we can easily identify the DA who was in possession of the bag last. These behaviors are unacceptable and will result in Tier 1 infractions going forward. Please communicate this message to your drivers. I know it may seem obvious or like something you shouldn't need to coach, but please be explicit when communicating the message that they cannot poop or leave bottles of urine inside bags. The health and safety of DAs and Amazon associates will always be our top priority. None of us should have to deal with these kinds of messes. Please respond and confirm that you have received this email. But the whole thing is, it is not just Amazon. It's not just truckers. When we let lobbyists who are paid a shitload of money by the biggest industries, remember in last week's episode, and when we talk about dark money, this was a concerted effort. They have come together and rewritten the rules to benefit big business in every way and every industry. There was a clip about poultry workers wearing diapers. This news anchor was like, surely not in America, not in this country. But that's the thing. Of course it's happening in this country. We don't protect our workers. We allowed for this creation of two economies and two ways of life and two ways of treatment by society and by law enforcement and by corporations. And now more of our society is going to fall in that lower class version of America. And up until now, it's been a lot of blue collar jobs that have fallen into that. But this next technological revolution, there is going to be so many more jobs and professions that are impacted. It's not going to be just blue collar going forward. We're already seeing the impact of automation and technology on low-level white-collar worker. It's going to continue to work its way up. So I want you to open your eyes to what this version of America is. And we're going to be talking about this a lot because it's worse than you would ever imagine for the United States of America. And the fact is that the second world was allowed to be created because of people's fears of others who look different than them. And racism gave an outlet for the coordination of all this. And now more white people are falling into that second world. And that trend will only continue until we turn it around, until we do something different, until the power dynamic in this country changes. And I think that the only way that we can do that is through the private market. And if we get enough people together and if we build a winner, because we are in a winner-take-all economy. That is why Amazon is wildly successful. So what's more likely? That we suddenly get our elected officials to start working in our best interests? Or in a winner-take-all economy, we create a winner, and then we use that winner's power to fight for equality and fight for the working class and almost form a people's union, but outside of the political realm. And this is the way that we will force political change. We have to shift that power dynamic first. And the way to do that is to create something just as big. And we can do that because there's a need. There's a significant need to maximize resources and to minimize our footprint on this planet. Amazon gets things made all over the world and delivers it to your doorstep in 2 days. And it's cheap and it's convenient and it's not going anywhere. But there's also a need for supporting our local communities and for using technology to maximize these resources. There's also a clip from 1989 in here where a senator was being offered a $10,000 check from a poultry exec and was shocked. He was on the news and was just like completely shocked that someone would blatantly try to buy him out. I don't think that would shock anyone anymore. And then when you compare the treatment of, in this case, it was Tyson's treatment of plant workers to their treatment of corporate workers, where they're taking yoga breaks and meditating. Companies are built on the backs of their employees. And at one point, that actually meant something. At one point, if there was a pandemic and there was an outbreak at work and you got sick, they wouldn't put your widow through the hassle of fighting survivor benefits. Right now, if anything happens to you, it's you against the big corporation. They're not there to protect you. It's clear that workers are viewed as expendable. At what point did we go so wrong? And OSHA's a fucking joke. This is a government agency. It should be working for us, but it is in no way helping us. Biden put somebody else in there, and is he better than an empty seat? Like, maybe. But if he is, it's going to be incremental. And we're way past the point where incremental change can be helpful. And I think that we're at the point that it's actually detrimental. And then if we compare that to the way that executives are treated. So there's two clips at the end. One talking about the golden parachute of Dennis Muhlenberg of Ethiopian Airlines. This company knew that there was a safety issue. And he ignored all of these warnings. He apologized after one crash, said that they were learning and they were continuing to learn and, said all of the things that he should say. And then a couple of months later, the exact same thing happened. He left with a $60 million package. Roger Ailes, the guy that just destroyed women's careers because they wouldn't sleep with him, the guy left Fox News with $40 million. It's sick. Since this podcast is new, we have no sponsors. So I will shamelessly plug Keiko. And if you get sick of hearing this, then reach out to become a sponsor.
Keiko, the social app. K-A-K-O. Keiko, the social app. K-A-K-O. Keiko, the social app. Keiko rules. Keiko, the social app. Billionaire greed? Keiko, the social app. Destroying America. Keiko, the social app. T-minus 7 years and counting. Keiko, the social app.
And with that, let's get back to the show. Paul is one of my best friends. We dated, and during COVID, he and his kids moved in with me. The idea was to keep everyone safe and to help his kids get the help they needed in school. Both of them have special needs, and they really weren't being met in the prior school district. But ultimately, I said I had to be a supporting cast member. I couldn't take on the responsibility of two more kids. And I had specific rules to protect my family, and their mom just would blatantly break them and then tell the kids to lie to me about it. And it got to the point that I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I'd given Paul a long time to try to find a place. And ultimately, in December of 2021, I said, you just need to find a different place. You need to be out of this house because I need to focus on my kids and I need to focus on me and I need to focus on my work. And so I effectively made two kids homeless and they're now getting kicked out of the school district that has been helping them. So, yeah, I don't feel the best about that. I have to warn you, the language in this interview is more explicit than normal for this show. So, Paul is a hardworking, blue collar guy with really sexy blue eyes. He can be blunt and uses the F bomb a lot. But he is the funniest person I know. It doesn't matter how tough of a day I've had. He can calm me down and he can make me laugh. As long as he wasn't the cause of the bad day, which is like a 50-50. He's a dad who loves his kids. But lately, he doesn't get much of a chance to see them. Okay, so here's the interview. And for some reason that doesn't have anything to do with me not realizing that the microphone wasn't turned on, Paul could not hear me. So I typed the questions in and went back after the fact to add in my comments. Okay, so Paul, tell me, what do you do for a living?
I service and repair all different kinds of medical equipment.
And how long had you been doing that?
Oh God, I've been doing this since I was like 22. I ended up finding this job online. Really, the biggest thing that I noticed was it was literally down the road from the woman I was dating at the time, who ended up becoming my wife, who is now my ex-wife, thank God.
And how long have you worked there?
I was there for about 13 or 14 years. Um, and then I left because, had a bunch of issues going on. Was going through a bad divorce, had substance abuse problems. Um, but like I said, with the divorce, caught her cheating and stuff, and she was an addict. I was an addict at the time. Um, it just, and then also it just got to be so bad because, you know, working in that environment, I was working a lot of funeral homes to see honestly, a lot of dead kids and dead people. And I was go work at CHOP in Philly, Children's Hospital Philadelphia, and you see these kids dying of cancer, and you talk to them, and a week later they're dead and stuff. And it started taking a toll after a while. And that was a lot of the reasons for the substance abuse problems. Just it got to a point where it was kind of like, all right, my boss just said, look, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to have to lay you off. Said, all right, well, this is going to be your way. Now step away, take care of yourself, take care of your kids. In the long run, it turned out being the right thing to do.
You've had some issues with your driving record, and your job requires you to be on the road quite a bit. How did this impact you trying to get another job?
I couldn't for the longest time. I needed a license. I drove everywhere. Um, I was able to get crappy jobs in the factory, maybe working for Amazon, which paid good, but that was tough work. But yeah, I needed a license, It turned out I had to wait till I lost it. And honestly, I had a lot of points from speeding and stuff. There was a time I got pulled over and I had 9 warrants or something, all from DMV stuff. I think you might remember that. It was after a nice date of ours back in the day. And yeah, I mean, I had to go to a driving school. I had to just stop driving for a while just to let the points go down. And now I drive very well. I don't do anything stupid. I know some people don't necessarily believe I drive very well, but I do. I drive very well now. I'm very careful. I'm very cautious. I use my turn signals. I try not to speed. Um, you know, I definitely am sober all the time when I'm driving because I'm sober all the time, period. So, I mean, that helps.
After losing the job that you were trained your whole adult life to do, you ended up working in manual labor. Tell me what your day was like.
Yeah, no, we would get in at like we had to be there at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were pretty much done by like 4 or 5. We had to drive a couple hours, depending on where it was at. But yeah, you would drive a couple hours, but then you're so tired, you come home, you eat, shower, and you're passing out. Um, there was no chance of getting another job looking for anything else without taking a day off. And if you take the day off, you're not getting paid unless you've been there long enough to have some kind of built up time. But again, nobody was there long enough because the guy was a jerk off. Nobody wanted to work with him. I mean, that's what most of the jobs was, just for advancement. Even my current job, like I worked over 70 hours this past week, and I still got paperwork left to do. I got in trouble because the paperwork is not done. And I told him, I was like, look, I got all these jobs. Oh, well, work less jobs, do less during the day. But last time I did that, I got in trouble for not getting these jobs done. So, like, it's kind of ridiculous. And to be honest with you, there's no real chance for advancement. There's like the next thing after a tech is like being the manager guy, but there's like 40 techs. So it's like, and the manager guy, he's not leaving anytime soon. So that's why I was like, you know what? I'm looking at trying to get into a biomed at a hospital. But the only problem there was it used to be they wanted a degree. Now I'm finding out that they don't want a degree because I have so much experience. But a lot of the places won't even look at the resume if they see no degree unless you kind of know somebody. So that's why I have friends at the hospitals that are now, putting in words for me, and I'm trying to get the resumes in. But I even saw a couple that were just online. So
When you worked at the manual labor job, there was an incident, and it was kind of like a last straw. Do you remember what that was?
yeah, but he had called me a pussy for something. I forget what it was that had happened. Yeah, that's when I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and do this. The guy, I told the guy I had never done this kind of work. I said I didn't know how to weld and stuff. And the guy expected me to be able to know how to do all this shit. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And then he had called me a pussy about something. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. And it's funny because everybody had left that company. I mean, the guy had worse turnaround than Amazon. Literally, I mean, he had maybe the longest tenured guy besides his brother who worked for him was like 2 or 3 years. I mean, doesn't that tell you something? I mean, but he's just the kind of guy who just wants some people for manual labor. He didn't care. And the funny part is, he ended up getting sued because he had screwed something up and somebody got injured, and the guy lost a whole bunch of money and everything. I was like, good, fuck him. He's an asshole. You know what? You treat your workers like crap. I hope you end up getting like crap. I mean, it's one thing. All you had to say is, hey, you don't know what you're doing. All right, let me show you. Or if you don't know what you're doing, get out of the way. Have somebody else show you. Don't be like, what the fuck, you fucking pussy. Like, fuck you, man.
So I encouraged Paul to leave that job because I don't know. I don't think that people should be treated that way. And I was with him. I wasn't going to let anything bad happen to him. We talked about it and I encouraged him to quit. I said, "You're not going to find another job while you're busting your ass working at this place. And this guy's not even treating you with respect." This was the best time for him to get his resume together, really search for a good biomed job. And so I encouraged that. And then he searched and he just kept getting turned down. And he went from, being the breadwinner for his family for the whole time that he was married to getting help from his girlfriend. And I think that that took a toll on him. If he would have died I would have had to live with that for the rest of my life. And I think about that a lot. How has credit and legal fees impacted your life?
But I had owed, it was like 20 grand I had owed. In the last 2 years, I paid off all that, which is amazing. I don't know how I did it. I think it might have been just over 20 grand. It was under 25, where it was like 20. So it was like everything I was working was going towards paying this stuff off, because I was like, I can't do anything unless I get this paid off. Um, and I should have done the whole thing with a lawyer and going through bankruptcy, but I was just like, let me just pay it, because bankruptcy is going to fuck my credit up too. So let me just pay off what I can. I mean, I got just about. I think I owe under $1,000 left now out of everything that I paid. But I mean, it's like, I've been paying this stuff off for years, and the legal issues, it just keeps going and going too, because I have had, situations, paying a lawyer, but this one situation just, it started off as one thing. I don't want to get into it for legal purposes, but it started off as one kind of thing they were going to charge me with, and then it became something else. So it basically almost tripled on what I owed the lawyer. So I was just like, all right, I'm doing what I got to do. And, certain things cost money for them to, dealing with their time. So it's just costing me more money. And some of the other issues that I've had in the past, I got caught with things, which is me being at the time, I thought I was being a good husband. And when are these legal issues from? The last 10 years were all from the last 10 years. The last one was from a couple. Yeah, it was from like January of 21, I think, 20 or 21. Yeah, January of 20, I think. I forget. Yeah, I think it was January of 2020. Yeah. Um, and I got to wait now till April to go for the next court date. Yeah, it's never resolved. Um, I had to keep going because they needed, what's the word? The discovery. I went 7 or 8 times for discovery because the state police was never sending anything. And finally, the judge just said, "All right, that's enough. No more. We're not sending out. We're closing it. If anything else comes in, that's it." I mean, and honestly, for me, I mean, that could be a good thing, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting, but now I got to go for April for the actual next court date, and we'll see what happens. I mean, my lawyer's going to try to get things thrown out, but he just doesn't know what's going to happen because he can't do a lot of things that he would like to do because he doesn't have that discovery. So it just matters on what the judge and the prosecutor and everybody come up with. Just, and my other situations, I have been caught with um, substances. Um, but like I said, they weren't mine. But at the time I was married, and it was all right. I'm just going to do what I can for to get part. Well, a few of them were. I'm just going to do what I can because it was at the time it was my wife, and I thought I was doing the manly thing. And then actually there was one other time where somebody dropped something in the car, and I just said, I wasn't a rat. I don't rat out people, and I was, I should have just did it. I should have just said, hey, this ain't mine. This is somebody else's, but I'm afraid they're going to go to jail because I know they had a lot of other stuff that they could have been in a lot of other trouble. And I just think I didn't want to rat them out. So I took the fall and it cost me. And I come to find out that last one that cost me because I didn't rat out a friend of mine, I said, I'm on probation now for that. The reason I'm on probation is not because I got caught. It's because I didn't spend the money on a good lawyer. If I had spent the money on a good lawyer, I would have had a slap on the wrist and it would have been out there. But because I used a public defender, I get a couple years probation. I get all these fines and everything I got to deal with because I just didn't spend the money on a good lawyer. Oh, it makes me so aggravated thinking of the stupidity I did. But it made me who I am. I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm going to be able to teach my kids things. And I'm never getting screwed like that again. I'm never doing anything like that again. So
Paul's an addict. Once you get a possession charge, every time you get pulled over, you're going to get your car searched. You're going to get hassled. When you criminalize addiction, you make it so hard to dig your way out of it. And I see how hard it was for Paul and how hard it still is. And he has a support system. I just don't understand this system in place. Who is it helping? He's got 2 kids who need him, who need their mom. They don't even know where to call home right now. Now, he did start renting out 2 rooms in the same place that his dad rents out a room. And he's still trying to find a permanent place. And he's on a list for low income housing that's right next to my house, but who knows when that would be available. That would be perfect because his kids would stay in the school district that they are doing so well in. But as of right now, it looks like the school district is going to kick them out. You have 2 amazing kids. How are you managing to take care of them?
Yeah, how am I managing to take care of my kids? I have a lot of great family. I had a wonderful woman and her family in a life that helped me out for many years. They all were great. I mean, I don't know how I managed. There's no way I could have managed. You know, um, without my family, without you and Anthony and stuff. And it's just I would never have been able to. I would have been dead in the ditch. They would have been with their mother, which wouldn't have been good. She's not the mother of the year candidate. Um, and now I'm just, I've gotten better because I'm clean, I'm sober. Um, I'm in a better position in life, but still it's tough because I work so many hours. And like they're either with my dad or with my mom or with my sister. And like with my dad tonight, we just had a problem because he's 80 and he left the stove on again, and he almost burned down the house. And it's like, all right, you can't cook with the stove anymore, Dad. This is a problem. So um, it's different situations pop up, and it's always like every week I got to find somebody.
I didn't ask Paul about his overdose because he still has some legal issues outstanding, even though that was over 2 years ago now. Leading up to that point, Paul was in recovery. He was attending NA meetings. And for me, I was relieved because he came to me and he said, "Look, I am so stressed and I need to start going to meetings. I feel this pressure." And it was something that I always wished Jeff would have done. And one day he gave into his weakness and he overdosed and he needed Narcan to be brought back to life. And for me, it was clear that he wasn't addicted to the medicine because the way that Narcan works, it basically throws your body into withdrawal. And if he was addicted, he would have been really sick over the next couple of days. But he wasn't. He was really upset, and so was I. But he wasn't physically sick. Paul had a lot of help, a lot more help than he would have had, and was able to clean up his life a little bit. And I'm really proud of him. But there are a lot more people who can't. And when I see the legal issues that Paul has to deal with and how many times he has court and how there's still probation, and it pisses me off. I know that addicts bear responsibility, but Purdue Pharma knew exactly what they were doing. They did this on purpose, and they did this to make profit, and so many people's lives have been destroyed. He's still trying to put the pieces back together, and he's in so much of a better position and better situation now than he was, but he still can't put it behind him yet. How long does somebody have to be clean? How much money do they have to give lawyers before we can give them another chance? I chose Paul's story because it just highlights so much that's wrong. We've criminalized addiction and made it so hard for addicts to overcome the obstacles that we put in front of them to be accepted back into society. And that needs to change.
That's it for this episode of Keiko Vision. Thanks for listening and tune in next week for more.
Keiko, the social app. K-A-K-O. Keiko, the social app. K-A-K-O. Keiko, the social app. Keiko rules. Keiko, the social app. Billionaire greed? Tuh. Keiko, the social app. Destroying America. Keiko, the social app. T-minus 7 years and counting. Keiko, the social app.